Come on in.
Okay. Let me say for the record that I'm Sara Tucker. You're Cindy Empson.
Cindy Empson.
Representative from the 12th District.
Correct. Temporarily, or at least now, until it...
They're calling it 12th now.
Right.
That's one of the things we need to make sure we get in here somewhere is what the district really is. You are from Independence.
Yes.
How would you describe your district as of now?
My district as of now is probably a blend between urban and not urban in the sense of your Topekas and your Sedgwicks, but city type area and very rural area. I've got a lot of farmland as well as got some oil land, and then I have one city of 10,000, which is the Independence where I live, and I represent another city that has probably 2,000 population.
Make it interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, tell me, how did you first get involved in politics?
I first got involved in politics with the school board. I was a member of our local school board, and I was appointed to that position. Probably never would have run for a position or taken the initiative to run for a position. And after I was appointed, I ran again for a 4-year term, and decided at that time, since we did spend a lot of time in Topeka and there was a lot of involvement and interaction obviously between the legislature and the school district, I found this interesting, and the representative who did represent that district retired, and it was a perfect opportunity to run, so here I am.
Have you always been a Republican? Why are you a Republican?
I have always been a Republican, and probably a lot of it had to do with my parents. They were also Republicans. I have a lot of basic agreement with their philosophies, and don't ask me now what their philosophies are. We seem to continually change it at this point, but I just feel like that party represents me and my interests best.
Tell me more about your first election campaign. Did you have to win a primary? How hard was the first election?
I had both a primary and a general, and I had in my primary I had an individual who had been in the legislature for probably 15, 16 years. He was in the Senate and in the House, and in 1980 he was defeated by Dan Thiessen, who is our current senator in that district. And since that time he has run against someone every 2 years, either myself as a representative, or Jim Patterson, the previous representative, or Dan Thiessen if it was a 4-year cycle. And he has yet to get back here, but he does have a credible following, and you can pretty much figure out the number of votes he's going to get in almost any given election.
Well, you certainly seem to be doing well now. I noticed you got 71% of the vote.
My vote has increased each time.
Well, that's very impressive.
I think I initially won with 56% or something.
56,
So 69 last time and 71 this time.
So this is your third term.
Yes.
You were first elected in 1986.
Yes.
When you first came to Topeka as a representative, did you have a sense of what the job was going to be, how you were going to do it, what style you wanted to have?
No, I did not. I had a lot of guidance from Jim Patterson, who was here before me, and probably from him some indication of what I was going to be facing up here. But it's a little bit different from your textbook government courses, and it's very interesting, but I had no idea of the magnitude of work you would have, probably the processes itself as a whole, and trying to find your way around the Capitol initially is a real challenge. There's just a lot of things that you really are not expecting when you get up here.
How would you describe the job now, at least as you do it?
It seems to change each year. This year I have not had a honeymoon period, so to speak. It's just been right immediately into work. And I guess that's probably because I'm on both the Education Committee and the Federal and State Affairs Committee. And both of those committees have several issues, many issues in front of them, and obviously education has some very important issues, as well as Fed and State. So both committees have been very active, and my afternoons are shot as a result of that.
Do you think committees are important?
I think committees are absolutely necessary.
What committees did you ask to be on when you first came? Did you get them? Were you right to ask for those?
I initially asked for education, which is probably my first love. Taxation, and gosh, I'm trying to think. You generally ask for the lofty, important committees, and I did get education. I also got labor and industry, which was not one of my favorite committees, as well as local government, which also ranks right up as one of my more unfavorite committees.
And then you managed to sort of get off the ones you didn't want to be on and on the ones you really
Yes.
want to be on now?
I traded, local government for transportation. And I enjoyed transportation because at the time we were trying to get a comprehensive highway bill passed that would be very beneficial to our area of the state. So that, I felt like, was a committee that I could make some difference in for my district in particular, or my area of the state in particular. So I enjoyed that committee. What did I go? Somehow I got off labor and industry, and I can't remember. I think that's my only 9 o'clock committee, because I currently do not have a 9 o'clock committee, which is just wonderful. My other committee assignment is Legislative Educational Planning Committee, and that meets primarily in the off season. So we don't have a lot of committee meetings during the regular session.
Do you find it helps that you're not from that far away to be able to come on the off season? Does that make it more possible, or?
You mean as far as distance? Or? I have always enjoyed driving, and getting in my car and driving anywhere is not any big deal to me. I enjoy it. It's probably therapy for me. I do a lot of thinking when I drive, and 133 miles is one way is not a lot of miles in my opinion.
Very interesting. Okay. How did you, now that you look back, what was it you did that worked for you to learn this job and how to do it? You mentioned Patterson as a mentor or a guide or a role model.
Pardon me, I'm getting a cold. I have developed some very close and hopefully lasting friendships up here. I think role model of watching many of these people who have been here longer than I have, and I consider much more knowledgeable than I in the process, has helped considerably. I think the fact that you office with others, I know the Senate has their own office, and there are a lot of advantages to having your own office. I don't mind. We're a little close right now with 3 of us, but I don't mind. You know, there's a lot of interaction, interchange, and it's good.
Is there anyone you'd like to mention that was a particularly good person to watch?
Well, my 2 next door neighbors and my office mate right here, I have Don Crumbaker, who is Mr. Education in the state of Kansas. And
you have Rochelle Chronister next to you.
Rochelle Chronister and then Phil Klein.
Okay. Looking back, and of course you don't have that far to look back, but 6 years is a fair distance. Are there any big issues, fights, victories, losses, lessons that really you're proud of or remember particularly strongly?
Well, again, the highway plan comes to mind because that was a big victory, and it was a big fight. That was not an easy bill to get through, and I think it ultimately passed with just the bare minimum number of votes required to pass. I guess as far as disappointments, every session you have disappointments. I think the fact that we have not been able to do anything with property tax is a disappointment to me. And it will also be a major victory if we can get something solved in that arena. But I put that as a big if. I guess the second term I was here, we were still in the majority at that time, and I was appointed vice chair of the Education Committee. I enjoyed my brief tenure in leadership at that capacity or that role.
And you probably wouldn't mind having another shot at it.
I wouldn't mind at all.
May I assume you're planning to run again, and this is something you're hoping to continue to do?
I do not intend to become a career politician. There are many who have been here in an excess of 20 years, and some of them, I think, still do a very good job for their districts. I find that the longer I seem to be here, maybe the less responsive I am, and you get so many people pulling at you in so many directions, and the first couple of years you try to pacify and work with everyone going, and all of a sudden you realize there's only one of me, and my body needs to remain together, and I don't need to be jerked from every end. So I guess you tend to know who you really want to listen to and who you don't. And that bothers me some. And I think, the things that I really enjoy doing, I put out a newsletter every week, and while I still enjoy writing it, it's now becoming a chore finding the time to do that. And I don't know, there's so many. I just think possibly your level of activity levels off and maybe even decreases the longer you're here. And that is not to say that everyone who has been here a long time is in that position. But I have no intention, like I say, of becoming a career politician. Probably 8 to 12 years would be my max up here.
Would you ever think of, say, changing to the Senate?
I'm not really interested in the Senate at this point, and while I will never rule anything out, because I at one time said I would never run for the House of Representatives, and here I am. But I like the House. I like the number in the House. I like the personalities in the House. I like people and like to watch people. I like the interchanges in the House. The Senate is, in my opinion, a little stuffier than the House, and I really have no desire to go there. There's no reason why I would want to triple my district size, and I don't need the ego trip, so I'm very comfortable right where I am.
You're a Republican. You're a lot of things. You're also a woman. Are there ways involved with your political process of running, of what issues you're interested in, of how you interrelate to people here, that being a woman has made a difference, has been a factor?
Sarah, the women in the legislature are increasing with each election. I think when I first came, I was one of 25 in the House. I think there are now 35 plus of us, 35 in the House now.
36.
36? Well, Ruby Gilbert was appointed with the Oak Cliffs. And I anticipate that number continuing to increase because you're seeing more women candidates now. I enjoy being a woman here. I like the interaction with men. I'm more comfortable with men as a rule. I have never been a person that needed a lot of companionship, and so I've never developed real close friends with other women. I've got a few women that I consider very, very, very close friends, but I just have never needed that in my life, and I do feel more comfortable interacting with men. So this was kind of an ideal situation. And I think men our male legislators, there are some that I would consider high in the ranks of male chauvinists, but as a whole, for the most part, I find that they are very responsive and very respectful of women in the legislature.
Glad to hear it. Why do you think this change has happened? Up until 1973, there were never more than 4 women in the entire legislature at one time. There's 45 now.
Well, I think there are many reasons. You are seeing more women increase their education levels. You are seeing more women become active outside the home. The traditional mother in the home, and that's where she stays, has kind of left us. In many ways that's not good, in many ways it is good. You are seeing, I think, probably the length of time we spend up here, and the salary has a big factor. It's difficult for a professional man who does have to be the breadwinner at home to come up here for 3 months or 3.5 months. It becomes a little bit longer all the time, so it's no longer just 3 months. The pay is not anywhere near what you would make in the private sector. And I think you're going to see more and more women just by necessity, because the men aren't running.
Turning to private life, would you tell me a little bit about where you grew up, what kind of family you came out of, what role models you had as a child?
My dad was with Motors Insurance, which is the insurance end of General Motors. And each time he got a promotion, we would move. Obviously, we used to look forward to his promotions because we got a little bit bigger house each time we moved. I had a wonderful, wonderful family life. My parents, I can't say enough about them. They are both still living. I wish they could live forever, although I know they can't. I have 3 sisters and a brother, and my sisters were all 2 years apart. My brother was a continued effort until they finally got a boy, and Charlie's about 10 years younger than I am. But I've always had a very loving, very responsive family, a family that I could go to with any problem I ever had, and still go to with any problem I have, and know that they're there for me regardless of what it is.
That's wonderful. We're getting birth order, just in case it turns out to be significant. Where were you in the birth order?
I was number 2.
Number 2. So far, we're finding no pattern at all, but I keep on
Number 2, I have an older sister.
Your mother was a traditional homemaker?
My mother was a traditional homemaker. I can probably count on both hands the number of times. I even had a babysitter when I was growing up. Now, my mother did go into the workforce after all of us were out of school. She is a registered medical records. And she did go back. In fact, she had never worked. She graduated from college, married my dad, never worked, and then did go back after my little brother graduated from high school and just had a ball. She has worked. She is now retired, but she worked up until 2 or 3 years ago, and just almost changed her totally. She became much more open to the real world. In fact, she and my dad have reversed in role models as far as I'm concerned. When I was growing up, it was my dad I could always go to, and I knew my mom would listen and wouldn't, but I was easier communicated with my father. And it's probably changed a little bit now. If I really need to talk to somebody, it's my mom I'll go to first.
Isn't that interesting? When you were growing up, what did you think your life was going to be like? Did you think you were going to be a wife and mother? Did you think it was kind of anything you wanted to do?
I always knew I was going to be a nurse. That was probably pretty cut and dried, and there was no ands, ifs, or buts. As far as a wife and mother, I anticipated at some point, yes, I would be a wife and mother. I knew I would probably not be a traditional mother as my mother was, and I guess I was more, I don't know, I can't say what my mother was like when she was growing up, but I guess I had maybe more challenges, or I'm not sure how I would describe that, but I just knew that I probably wouldn't be happy being a traditional homemaker and in the home constantly.
So you made sure you did get a profession and had all your choices. That interests me because you were born in 1947, I was born in 1946, so I know the era you're coming out of.
Yes.
Well, you did go on and get married, and was that right out of nursing school, or?
That was after, let's see, probably 2 years later.
2 years later. Married a doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's happens. And you have 2 children.
Yes, I do.
Now, did they just kind of come along? I'm trying to get their birth dates, and part of this is going to figure out how old they were when you came here at the legislature and so on.
Okay, Stacy is 22. She was born May 29th, 69. May 5th, I'm 29, 69. Stephanie is 19. She was born May 13th, 71.
So they were teenagers when
72.
you... 72.
72.
I find that comforting. So they were teenagers when you took up electoral politics?
Yes. They were both still at home, and fortunately my husband agreed to be mother and father temporarily while I was up here, and they were very supportive.
How did you do that? Did you come up here during the week and drive home on weekends?
Which I still do.
Which you still do.
Thank you, ma'am.
You say very supportive. Has it been a big disruption for the family? Do you think there were some costs for them?
Oh, I think it's a big disruption for a family, particularly if you do have kids at home. With my husband being a doctor, I am used to disruptions in family life. We have no constant time that we can really call our own because it's kind of tied to the telephone. But I think anytime you take one person out of the home, you disrupt a family. And there were many times I couldn't be there for basketball games or cheerleading events or school plays or whatever that not only bothered me, but I'm sure it bothered the kids too. And like I say, they were very supportive, and they, Mom, it's okay if you don't come to my school play. I'll never have another one, but it's okay.
I'm wincing. She's laughing.
Well, I laugh because I spent a lot of time driving home during the week to go to different things that they were part of.
Good morning.
Morning. Why do you think they were supportive? What did they get out of this?
I guess they knew me well enough that they knew they probably better be supportive because the choice was there was not a great choice there. I wish I could tell you specifically what they got out of it. I have one daughter that probably enjoyed the fact that I was a representative. I've got another one that really doesn't care a whole lot about politics and probably doesn't even tell anyone that I am here. So I'm not sure that they got anything out of it or continue to get anything out of it.
And your husband is, you say, very supportive?
Continued to put up my signs, campaign for me, and urge me to do what is making me happy to doing.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Sounds like a husband worth keeping.
He is. He is a keeper.
One of the costs a lot of people have are financial, as you say, the salary and all of the compensation is less than lush.
Yes.
How do you do this? How does it impact your family that you have this job?
Well, and I guess I'm probably more fortunate than most because while we are by no means rich, we are comfortable on Chuck's income level and have been able to put aside for the future, so we don't really have a lot of worries later in life. And so the financial end has not been as great a sacrifice for me as it is for as it is for others.
I need to go back and pick up something I really meant to cover earlier. How did you manage to campaign for your first elections and since? What kind of group are you able to draw on to do this?
You would probably have to, coming from a small town or a small community, you know many people, with Chuck being a doctor and he has a very large practice in Independence. He obviously has many people. I've worked in his office for, and still do, for the 19, 20 years we've been in Independence. And so I have had an opportunity to meet many. I think that always helps. I have been very active in PTA prior to my school board experiences. So while I don't know everybody in town, I certainly have dealt with a lot of people in Independence. I've done a lot of community work and am involved in a lot of different organizations and events that occur in Independence and the surrounding area. So I have just, it's been a natural coming together.
Group of people that you call on and they walk. Did you walk? Why did you win?
Well, there's probably a lot of reasons. As I said, I ran against an individual who had been up here. There were lots of stories about his escapades while he was up here. He was a newspaper publisher. He is a newspaper publisher of a small weekly newspaper, and he is currently a Democrat. I think he switched parties 2 years ago to run for county commissioner a year ago, or whenever it was. But I spent a lot of time campaigning.
How did you do it? Did you walk alone? Did you have people walk with you?
I walked alone. I had others help me, but I didn't have anyone with me when I was knocking on doors. And probably knocking on doors is the most effective campaign tool and the cheapest campaign tool you have.
Were there any issues in any of the campaigns that were really crucial?
Taxes.
Hear that a lot.
Taxes continue to be crucial and a big issue in the campaigns. In fact, that is it's probably the primary focus of what I'm hearing from my district now.
What difference would you say being here has made for you then, and your family, if there's something you haven't said? What impact has it had on you?
Well, I value the time I've spent here. I think I've become much more aware of what's happening not only on the state level but on the federal level. I feel a part of what's happening on the state and federal level, and I think anytime you have ownership, you develop a closer tie with it. I think it's broadened my personality. I've had to deal with a lot of different personalities, and as I say, I enjoy people, and I enjoy people watching, and I enjoy interacting. But you do have to be a player, and forge off on your own up here, you'll get very little done. I've learned probably a lot about confidence and trust up here, and just I think it's broadened me totally.
Is there something I should have asked you ahead? Is there something you'd like to say that?
Sarah, I can't think of anything else. Be very interested in seeing how you're going to put all this together, because I just kind of rambled on. But